Welcome into the ProtoPod, the show where we talk to the innovators, engineers, and entrepreneurs who are shaping the future of technology and manufacturing. I'm your host, Jordan Rose. On today's ProtoPod, we're thrilled to welcome in a true trailblazer in health tech innovation, Eric Turkington, the Chief Product Officer of Rain Stella Technologies. Eric recently moved to Abu Dhabi to lead a newly formed powerhouse born from the merger of Rain Technologies and Stella Technologies, combining AI, voice tech, and digital health infrastructure to reshape care across the Middle East and Africa. Under his leadership, RST is building products like Orva, a voice-driven surgical assistant, along with interoperable EMR systems and data intelligence tools that could transform how hospitals operate and how clinicians document care. Today, we'll talk with Eric about that journey, what it takes to scale AI in complex care settings, and where he sees the future of digital health going. Eric, welcome into the ProtoPod. Eric, welcome into the ProtoPod. I'm super excited to have you on today. You're the Chief Product Officer at Rain Stella Technologies. Really fascinating company. I want to start, though, learning a little bit more about yourself. Can you give me an idea of what your professional career has looked like?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So I've been working in health tech and AI in healthcare for the last several years. But before that, I was working in kind of the voice and AI space more generally with a company called Rain. Rain is obviously merged with Stella Technology to form RST, or Rain Stella Technologies, the company I'm with today. But before this merger, before we were so deep into health tech, we did all different types of innovation in the voice space, from building voice assistants for industrial applications like automotive technicians to building voice assistants for Nike or Starbucks. So we had a big chapter of voice at Rain, and that's kind of what drew me to the company. The company has been kind of on the cutting edge of that space, even pre-ChatGPT. And before that, I worked in product innovation from more of a consulting perspective with Capgemini and Fahrenheit 212. Fahrenheit 212 is a small boutique kind of innovation and product consulting firm that was acquired by Capgemini. Before that, I did a bunch of different things in communications and PR and marketing as well. So yeah, it's been a fun road, kind of non-linear career path to working in product and healthcare, but that's part of what makes it fun.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I wanted to go to next. So obviously you've got a ton of experience in product development, also in AI, voice AI, to be specific. I'm curious, that merger sounds like a very interesting one. You know, Rain's voice AI technology with Stella, the medical side of it, the MedTech. How did that merger come together? It does make a lot of sense to me.
Absolutely. So Rain Stella Technologies was the result of Rain Technology and Stella Technology coming together. We're both companies that have been centered here in the Middle East for a few years, and have chosen to effectively leverage the incredible environment for healthcare innovation that is the UAE and the surrounding Middle East and Africa markets here. And Rain's history has been more in the voice technology space, and very, last 3 or 4 years has been very deep in healthcare. Stella has been working in healthcare for the last, I think, about 20 years in various forms. And so our portfolios were also very complementary, where Rain has been focused on the surgical side and deep in the AI side with our product called Orva, where we've been effectively bringing voice to the operating theater in a way that it's never been brought before. Whereas Stella's products are equally critical, I think, in the healthcare space, but in very different areas, which are more established categories. So electronic medical records, they have a product. Now we have a product as Rain Stella called Equinox, which is serving the needs of many different sorts of clinics to manage daily patient interactions in a way that is not very painful. And this is like the most painful category of technology out there, the medical record. And this is a product that's been designed so simply that clinicians just love it. And they have a product called Constellation, I should say we have a product called Constellation. This merger is a few months in, and I'm still having quite internalized that we have this awesome portfolio. Constellation is a healthcare information exchange, which effectively helps a hospital communicate with another hospital, or a clinic communicate with another clinic about the same patient, where their record can actually travel between systems that otherwise couldn't talk to each other. So it's now a portfolio that spans, surgical acute care, primary care, the daily doctor visits, and then also national scale data that helps ministries provide tools for citizens to get connected care across no matter what doctor they want to see. So that's an exciting cluster of capabilities, and it's great to have to be building a company here in Abu Dhabi and in the UAE, because it's such a supportive environment for healthcare innovation.
Yeah, it is an amazing scope of products that you guys offer. I mean, the one that sticks out to me, so full transparency, my wife is a primary care provider, and I know that continuity of care, that communication between systems, I've heard her complain about that. So I can only imagine the difference that would impact her, as well as all of the providers that you guys service.
Yeah, it's a very deep technical challenge, right? Because these healthcare systems have been engineered for so long across like 18 different standards, right? So there's like some standards that get developed from international bodies that don't even make it to mass adoption, but they still spent 2 years working on the standard, and some hospitals adopted it, but not others. So there's this need to basically take in all of these various formats and basically transform them into something that's coherent, that is kind of a universal language. So yeah, it's a powerful technology, and I think when you think about collecting data at that scale, there's the micro value of like a single patient has a seamless experience, and that's huge. We all feel that, and we all know the pain when we have to fill out additional forms or consents when we shouldn't have to, when we're just trying to get our history to follow us to our doctor. But there's also the macro of, you can understand what's happening with your population if you have access to consistent data across all the different providers in whether it's your emirate or your whole country. So this is a region where there's been a lot of forward-thinking, data management at a healthcare level, where they're actually mandating that, like, if you provide care, you have to have a electronic medical record system, and you have to kick your data into the national system. Because if you don't, it's going to give the government no idea what's happening in their country. They don't know if there's an increase of diabetes, or if there's a rise of COVID instances, or all these different trends. Maybe there's a shortage of caregivers for the population's needs. So there's like an information gap if you don't have sort of a national framework for that. But then there's, of course, like a care gap at the individual level as well. So that's a critical solution. And I think when you apply AI to that, when you think about like an anonymized version of all the data, where, obviously patients are opting in to allow their data to be used in that form, that's also a very powerful proposition, because you can think about forecasting of, future states of how ready is our healthcare system for X, Y, and Z scenarios, or maybe we need to hire, an additional, 10% of cardiologists because we have a high rate of, CV disease coming soon. So data is power in that regard, and it's an exciting proposition.
Yeah, it's incredible what you can do with all that. At every single level, it's amazing. Is there anything specifically that you could point out as, the top innovations that you see, your team, now Rain Stella, propelling, I guess, in the near future?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things across each product, but I think, to take a couple examples for we'll just take Orva, the operating room voice assistant for the moment. We're using cutting edge voice technology to capture data there, but then we're using LLMs to basically interpret the data that we're getting. And then we're using another technology called relevance-based prediction to actually leverage the data we have to envision the future. So there's a whole lot of different technologies embedded there. There's, region-specific, accent-specific stuff that makes sure that the healthcare workforce can be interpreted the right way. A lot of the global models that have been, pre-trained on accents haven't skewed towards the right, accent clusters that represent the healthcare workforce in this region, which is extremely diverse and very challenging to master. So we've got like a sort of a regionally specific speech recognition system. And then I think from an LLM perspective, we have we do a lot of tuning of open source models, and we have very dedicated use cases for each of our, I guess you could call them agents, from how they extract structured text from unstructured text, like notes about what happened in a surgery, to map that to a medical record system. So there's a lot of innovation happening in that world. How do we recommend the right billing codes for procedures that happened that you didn't expect were going to happen? Sometimes, a patient has a laceration and needs an emergency transfusion. This stuff can often go unbilled at a hospital and cost them a lot of money because nobody had time to write it down when it happened. But if with voice, you can log that sort of event immediately. So there's a lot of different ways where we're deploying AI from the perspective of interpreting what we've already captured. And then this relevance-based prediction is an interesting method where we're looking at how you can look at the past data, find out what's most relevant to what you're trying to predict. Let's say I'm trying to predict the length of a surgery. Maybe it's the surgeon, maybe it's the time of day, maybe it's the operating room that we're in. All these things can have a different effect on what's ultimately going to be the length of that surgery. So if you're trying to schedule at a hospital, we average about 3 hours for a total knee replacement. Well, it turns out for this particular patient, it's going to be more likely to be 4 hours and 15 minutes for this reason. So this is actually a more explainable method of taking previous data and understanding that, like, for this patient, it's actually a mixture of their age and this particular surgeon and the fact that it's 4 p.m. on a Thursday. That means it's going to last that long. So there's different roles that these sort of AI applications play across that sort of pipeline to capture what happens, interpret what happens, and then project the future based on that data. So that's just a few examples of how we're applying that in surgery, and we're looking at very similar types of things in the EMR space as well as the HIE space, but kind of on steroids when it comes to data.
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible. I can only imagine, you've alluded to some of the examples of the different applications, but there is so much there. I'm curious. So, given that there is so much there, how do you go about, like, I guess, the process of taking a concept or an idea all the way to something that is, reliable, dependable, and usable in the field? Like you alluded to it there with the accents, right? And the development of that product, I'm really interested in how you guys go about approaching getting that into a usable state, given that there are a lot of variables there, and the stakes are high.
Yeah, 100%. Healthcare is extra challenging because the barriers to entry are high, and that's what makes innovating in it very valuable. But there's no more challenging environment than, like, the operating theater, right, where everyone's stressed out. There's no margin for error. There's very limited time for learning curves and very low patience, right? So you have to do a lot of testing of stuff on your own before you even get into the field. But I think we always try to do basically a very structured R&D process internally, and we set up tools that allow us to simulate what we expect to happen in the real world. So operating rooms are very noisy, and they have unpredictable noise floors. It's not that they have, like, the constant hum of, like, a radiator or an air conditioner. It's like spikes of, like, machines and all these
dropping
things.
Tools and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually, thankfully, had done a lot of work in that space in garages, like, we're working of surgeons of a different sort, people who repair cars. And we've done a lot of noise management work there, but that's just one example of how we have a simulator to basically see how well our speech recognition system holds up at different decibel levels and for different types of noise under different accent conditions. And so we really test the heck out of things in a way that simulates what we're going to expect there, so that we've already gotten most of the way there to something we think is going to be fairly reliable. And then, of course, sometimes what you think is reliable, you throw it out when you get there, because you realize that the acoustics of the room weren't able to be modeled perfectly well by your at-home test, and so you have to kind of go back to the drawing board. But yeah, you have to get out pretty quickly, but you try to do so in a way that isn't coming out blind. You kick the tires on it yourselves, but yeah, when it comes to just the technical aspect, that's we try to be pretty rigorous in testing, and then quickly get out and retune and iterate quickly there. When it comes to like what to build, right? Like what features are going to be valuable for a given user. That's just a lot of like listening and learning and watching, right? And admittedly, like we've leaned on a lot of experts, a lot of design partners in how we've been designing Orva. People who have been, anesthesiologists for 30 years or surgeons for 40 years, and nurses have worked at 5 different hospitals. Processes are highly variable, and so you have to try to understand like what's universal and what's highly variable, and how deep do you go down the rabbit hole of like tuning something to this hospital's workflow when you know it's going to not work for that hospital. So that's like a design challenge of like how much do you stay up here at the universal level, and how much do you choose to go dive deep into what's going to work for a cluster of hospitals but maybe not another cluster. So that's the sort of tension we wrestle with every day.
No, it's so interesting, like how the commonalities that I see in that and what we talk about a lot on the show and internally in what we do, and that idea that testing, and you gave a great example of testing in the garage in the auto shop. To find a noise floor for an operating room, and it's we would term that a duct tape solution, right? Because we have this unknown of how much noise is it, what type of noise is it, what does the pattern look like, and the sooner you can figure that out, even if it's a duct tape solution, if it's a duct tape test, the better off you'll be moving forward in your project. It's fascinating how that translates, and even the concept of mass custom, which we talk about a lot on the show. So, Protocase as a manufacturer, we're pioneers in a manufacturing methodology called high velocity mass customization. It's basically making custom parts really, really quickly to power innovation. But the idea is that you take the common things, so the things that are universal happening at all the hospitals, and you make them common, and then you vary them depending on the custom work. And it's again, the application in your case is a little bit different, but the concept is very much the same. It's so interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a very analogous concept.
So obviously the idea that for you guys it translates that mass custom idea translates into a medical product. For us, it's a part we give somebody to move forward with their project, but it's so similar. I did want to ask, I know that the medical industry gets a bit of a bad rap when it comes to innovation. A lot of regulation for very good reason. You had alluded to earlier that your experience in the UAE has been quite different, that there is an acknowledgement that this innovation is required. Can you just expand on that and talk about how innovation fits in with a heavily regulated industry, especially in the UAE, maybe how it's different?
Yeah. I think there's a unique culture in this country in particular that says like not should we innovate, but how do we do it and under what timeline? There's a mixture of like robustness of risk management with like we need to take all these precautions, but when we do, we expect to see measurable gains in X, Y, and Z metrics, and just that you can see it even in the pace that they build here, right? It's incredible. in terms of the transformation of the country on an infrastructure level. But when it comes to healthcare, there's a way to move quickly on regulation here that I think you don't see in some other, Western markets that are a little bit more stagnant, right? In terms of like legislation gets held up, and I think here there's an acknowledgement that the future is here now, and like new technologies like need to be acted on like in weeks and months, not in like years. And so, well, I think there's a high standard for protections, and a lot of inspiration taken from a combination of U.S. laws and EU laws in terms of HIPAA and GDPR. Both make their way into regulations here. There's still a acknowledgement that like we should proceed if these things are true, and if a company can prove that they're managing data the right ways, which of course we've had to do. So I think it's just sort of a national insistence that like we need to adopt new technology. It's not an if, but a how, and insisting that the companies that are pushing that innovation do so very transparently, and with very detailed compliance to the law. But they've proven that you don't have to have one or the other. I think you can have a degree of oversight, but like the regulators here are very progressive, right? They want innovation, and that's actually a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly where my head was at. Was the term that was coming to mind was the power of and. Is you can both have safe measures for new products, but also allow product innovation to flourish. They're not mutually exclusive, and it seems like in the West it is definitely leaned more heavily towards the regulation side, and that can cause us not to move forward as quickly as we could, and therefore we have worse results. And I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I think this region is looking to become a net exporter of new technology, not just an importer of the greatest from around the world. Mm-hmm. And to do that, you have to have like an ecosystem strategy, right? Like it starts, with being a good climate to do business in, which they obviously are. It has to be a place people want to move. Mm-hmm. I moved here just this year, and it has to have a good quality of life. It has to have the right university structure. It has to have good, way of that innovations from, that they have an AI university, the first AI university. I was just meeting with somebody from there yesterday. The world's first, right? And they develop a lot of technologies that they then license to companies here to commercialize. So there's a sort of a whole ecosystem strategy for how they create value, and I think that's pretty unique in the world.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting and encouraging, and I'm definitely interested to watch and see how it plays out. Before we conclude, I did want to cap off with our rapid fire question segment.
Okay.
So I'm going to fire some questions at you. First thing that comes to mind is the answer. First question, coffee or tea?
Coffee, black, first thing in the morning.
Correct answer. Early morning or late night?
All early morning for me. I've been an early riser my whole life, and what's weird here is that most people don't even start work till like 10.
Oh, wow.
And I'm usually up and at 'em at 6 something. People work late here and they start late, and I'm like shifted back. So, it's nice to do a little bit of work before everyone's up and at 'em. You get time to think and do the hard problems first.
I totally agree. Tech you can't live without?
Man, probably Sonos. I'm a big music guy, and I had to acquire a whole new set over here. So I was always playing music for myself and the family.
Awesome. One book you would recommend to everyone?
I would say I'm a big philosophy guy, and I studied that in college. And even though this is an old text, I would recommend Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. It's got a lot of very concise guidance that still holds up from Roman times to now.
Stoicism.
And, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Favorite travel destination?
Oh man, I think probably the coast of Maine, southern coast of Maine. I grew up in Massachusetts and used to go there every summer. So yeah, it's got a special place in my heart, and it's not crazy overpopulated like a lot of the coastal places in Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's beautiful there. I flew into Portland. I didn't stay, but I flew into Portland a couple weeks ago, and it was beautiful.
Nice.
For the first time. So
it was gorgeous.
Yeah. Biggest innovation you think will shape healthcare in the next 10 years?
I think it's definitely in the realm of AI, but I think it's the combination of probably a mix of like voice AI that just ambiently listens to everything that happens between doctors and patients, computer vision that tracks what's happening, for example, in operating rooms or even in emergency care, basically like having eyes and ears on everything, and having an engine that can combine all those inputs and make sense of it and compare it to best practices or previous history. I think as soon as you get great data coming in about basically everything that's happening that doesn't rely on people to interpret it, you're going to start to have a degree of improvement in clinical approaches, in operational approaches. So I think, just better data in for AI to make sense of, and probably better models to do that reasoning. It's going to be something in the realm of AI.
I like that. Something that allows us to see what we can't.
Yes, exactly. It gives the humans the ability to make judgments with 100% of our brain, rather than trying to navigate the way toward truth with 90% of our brain, while we use 10% to reason on that truth.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate your insight into such an innovative space and what you guys are doing at Rain Stella. If people listening are looking to learn more about Rain Stella Technologies, where would they do that?
Rainstellatech.com.
Easy one. Again, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing where you guys go, and definitely would love to chat again in the future. Any new products, anything innovative that you want to come on and chat about, I'd be totally open to it. So,
yeah, I would love that. Thanks so much for having me.
Until next time. Bye-bye.